at Creighton Volleyball head coach Kirsten Bernthal booth. Blue Jays won a pair of matches last weekend and are back on the road this weekend at Villanova and Georgetown. Give us a review of last week and look ahead to this week.
Yeah, I thought our offense was really good last week. Our numbers went up. We're just being a little bit cleaner. I think our defense still has to get better. We've spent a lot of time on that this week. Have had a really good week of practice. Nova upset St. John's, who was in a tie for first with Marquette. So that, Nova's coming off a pretty big win. They play Georgetown tonight. And then Georgetown's just much, much improved. And historically, both Nova and Georgetown have been really almost different teams on their home court than how they do on the road. So we're expecting, even though we just played them 2 weeks ago, we're expecting much tougher battles.
Questions?
I mean, just off that point, you go into these gyms and a lot of times any energy you get has to be stimulated from yourself. What has that been part of training at all this week? Is you get ready to go into these places realizing that we're going to have to juice ourselves up and not have the benefit of a crowd?
Villanova usually draws decently, and that gym can get really loud. I don't know if they're doing a promotion. It kind of varies sometimes year to year there. Georgetown definitely sometimes can be quiet. But I think our team does a pretty good job navigating that. I don't think the issue is that as much as their team sometimes get more of a flow, and sometimes we get punched there, and we've got to be able to just stay calm. You can sometimes feel stress. I think our team's managing stress better in the last few weeks, so hopefully that'll be the case in case we get punched on this weekend.
Nora finally being back playing all 6 positions. What does that do for you, and how great is that, if it is, just to see her back in that role and how she's adjusting?
Yeah. I think we've said all along we played her conservatively. We wanted to make sure she was fully healed, before pushing her back in. And the good thing is she's felt great. But it was impressive the way that she just kind of came back true to form. She was our best passer over the weekend. Obviously hit at a very high clip, carried a lot of load. Right away, she and Kendra, fortunately have several years of experience setting, Kendra setting Nora, so there's a comfort level of Nora knows the type of balls that Kendra likes to get to her. So all those things, I think, helped us be able to make that transition quickly. But there's no question that Nora brings a calm to the court, and that a confidence that the team responds well to. And it was really fortunate the timing because, she got cleared right when Destiny got hurt. So, maybe that's the positive, some sort of silver lining to the way the injury bug has hit us. But, yeah, it's great to have her back out there, and she obviously played really well.
Do you have a sneaking... Oh, do you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have a sneaking suspicion that she might have gotten better in some way in the 5 weeks of just seeing the game through a different lens, knowing that she wasn't going to be able to play? Like, is there anything to that, you think?
Well, I don't know if I can say that at this point, but I do think sometimes when you are coaching or sitting, all those things can take place. You see it with a different lens. So there's no question that does happen with some athletes. I went up to Nora before Friday night and just said, go have fun. I think of all kids that just loves the game and how hard it's been to sit out. And it's hard for all of them to sit out. I don't mean to make it seem like it was worse for her, but, just go and play the game that you love. And I think she did that well.
I know Sky had to step in at libero this past weekend with Ellie being out. I guess talk a little bit about her play and what you saw of her last week.
Yeah, different role for her, and additionally, all 3 of our passers had to pass all 3 rotations because we played Katie Mazer, who's a setter, in our other DS slot. So both Sky, Ava, and Nora carried a ton of load. I think she did a good job. I think there was a transition, and still has been a transition from, she's played primarily right back and middle back and moved to that left back, and hasn't played a ton of left back. Even in clubs, she played some left back, but she played more middle back. So, I think that's a transition. But I thought overall she did a really good job kind of stepping in and carrying a lot of load.
We hear a lot about, the pitcher-catcher relationship, but, going off of that, how important is that setter-hitter relationship and building that kind of trust and the chemistry, I guess?
It's big, and I think big in the sense of tempo's different with different setters. It comes out of their hands. tendencies. Kendra likes to create some sets that a lot of setters can't create. So new players sometimes aren't, I would call it on the runway, anticipating the ball to find them. And that's an adjustment for players to know, hey, this ball that usually is, for most setters is going to go here, Kendra's going to maybe do something else with it. And so, Nora and Kendra, since they've played together their entire career, just have that, and we're able to step right back into that.
What do you think, what have you seen from your team's demeanor and how they respond to saying, hey, look, this person's out, that person's out, here's how we're going to line up, here's what we're going to do, because it just seems like it's been an insane flow throughout the year where it's hard to kind of figure out week to week what's going to happen.
Well, first of all, they responded really well. I think that they really do trust each other, and whoever gets called upon, they trust that. The challenge with that is, sometimes it's easier when you know your role. Like, even if it's not the role you want, you know your role. And the hard part now is, okay, so people came in, maybe they did a great job, so now where are we going to make some adjustments, or are we going to stay with that person? So I think that's the next challenge as players start to come back, as coaches figuring out what is our best lineup, now that we've gotten to see more players, which is definitely a luxury. But how do we make sure people are still bought in and accept that role and maybe be on deck to be used? So, there's goods and bads in both of those scenarios. But that's the card that we've been dealt this year, and I think they've done a really good job of handling it, not feeling, I've never seen a reaction of like, oh my gosh, how are we going to survive? I mean, I do think last week when Ellie got hurt and it was the fourth one in a couple days, there was like, what is going on? It wasn't like a panic of can't we not do that, we're not going to do well, but it was like, what's going on? Why are we having all these injuries? But I think they just trust each other, and it's interesting of all years. I mean, we talked about in Italy of how deep we were, and so I guess we're getting to use that this year more than most.
Mm-hmm. It's been over a month since you've even played in a fourth set. Do you take any note of that, or is there something that you'd like to get back to with being in those fifth sets, or just that experience builds as you get closer to tournament time?
If we win set 1 and 2, I don't like to go to 4 or 5. I think that the takeaway with that is just, are we getting better at just being cleaner, and I think typical to most years, a lot of times you're a little bit up and down to start, and I felt even actually later in the year that we were a little bit up and down. I think we're starting to stabilize, but we'll be tested this weekend to see if that's the case, because, you can't play one great game and then, we did that actually against Providence. We played one great game, and even though we won the second game, we didn't play a good second game. So that's the challenge of really being great. Can you do it all the time? And that's what we're working to. So we'd like to win in 3 if we're winning.
Hey, a couple weeks ago, you said one of your goals in the short term was to get better defensively. You felt like you guys were moving around a little bit too much, is the way you put it. Like, with Ellie out and Nora coming back in playing 6 rotations, Ava 6 rotations, like how do you assess that now as a coaching staff, trying to get better with major pieces missing from that component?
I don't think that really makes a difference, because we have expectations for all the players to be. You have your responsibilities. Now, is there some gray occasionally? Yes, but if I'm in middle back, I know what area of the court generally I need to cover, and I need to be balanced before contact, and I need to make more touches than we've been making. Same for every position on the court. So that's really been our focal point. So it's not really about who is there. I mean, again, there is some comfort when you play next to people, but I don't think that's an excuse for us not getting some touches on balls. And again, that has been our huge priority this week, and I feel like we've seen some transfer in our 6-on-6 in practice. So I'm optimistic. Hopefully, we'll see that this weekend.
Anything else?
Actually, yeah. After the UConn match, you were, I don't know, you felt like the Katie Mazer stepping up and making plays for you out of a situation she's never really been thrust in before was something that, I don't know, you felt a different type of way about. As you reflect on it more, what did that kind of weekend mean for you, for Katie, for everyone who's kind of been around her all these years?
Yeah, Katie did a great job. And, Katie's one of those kids that we talk a lot about in the office of doing her job consistently in practice. There just hasn't been the fit to get her on the court and with things that played out, and we had other options too. So kudos to her to doing it and then earning the spot at that point, right? Like, because if she'd struggled, we had other people that we could have gone to on the bench. And, again, it's a kid that has for 4 years been the greatest teammate, been selfless, worked hard every single day. And, her dad was out there and got to watch it. So that was cool to see. But, Katie epitomizes what we want, the type of young woman that we want on the Creighton volleyball team, someone that works hard every day, brings a positive attitude, and will do whatever she needs to do on or off the court to win matches.